Hi everybody, welcome to the second episode of the Neurotic Knitter podcast. I'm Drew, and I'm so glad to be with you on this beautiful sunny Saturday. I'm coming to you live from the Yarn Studio, Yarn Suite, Yarn Studio / office space. It's about 85 degrees here and sunny in Fayetteville, Arkansas, which is where I'm coming to you from. I can, out of the corner of my eye here, I can see our little rose garden. I'll have to show you guys that at some point in the future. And things are just starting to take off. It's like one of my favorite times of year, springtime. We had a really hard winter this year in Arkansas. It didn't really snow a lot, which is kind of a continual frustration of mine. Those of you who know me well and my coworkers have to listen to me complain all year, or not all year, but in the winter time about the lack of snow in Arkansas. So this winter we had a very cold winter. It was long. We had 30-degree weather well into April, probably until the end of April, and our poor roses really suffered a lot because of the cold weather. So we lost a couple. Things are really slow to start. This time last year we had the first flush of roses, and now this year we're just now starting to see things open up. So anyway, really exciting, my favorite time of year. It's gonna be like 90 degrees today, which is kind of crazy. I wanna thank everybody out there. So this is my second podcast, as many of you know, or the people who watch know. And I just received an amazing response. I'm still like a little in shock about it. I didn't really know what to expect. I wanted to try something new. I'm very introverted, and I think this really pushes me outside of my comfort zone. But I also feel like it's important for me to share a little bit about myself and to do something kind of extroverted and outside of my comfort zone. I think you've always got to be learning and growing. So the response has been wonderful. I have almost 500 views on my first video, and I think I have something like almost 70 subscribers. Again, probably like low bar by YouTube standards, but way more than I expected. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I hope this will be something that you guys will want to watch, and I'm just excited to share my life with you and you know, share some of the things I'm working on. So a couple of updates on just like what's been going on with me. It really hasn't been that much time since I filmed my last podcast. It's been about a week and a half. But since then I've been trying to improve my podcast knowledge and learn about podcasting and try some different setups. So one thing you'll notice is I'm in landscape this time. Hopefully that improves the podcast experience. I'm also experimenting with a different video speed / quality. My movements are probably a little more fluid. So we'll see. Anyway, I'm learning. I'm trying it out. I'm learning. I haven't got it all figured out. Which brings me to my next point. I just spent the last 2 hours, hour and a half, 2 hours, preparing for and interviewing my dear friend Cassie Monksgard, who was amazing. And the interview I thought was pretty good. It was a first interview, so like I think I was rocky as like an interviewer or like a host, but Cassie did a great job. Unfortunately, the sound, there's a problem with the sound. I had good sound on my side, and I had kind of subpar, really echoey, not so great sound on Cassie's side. I actually think that was an issue with my technology. But anyway, I'm gonna work it out. I'm gonna figure it out. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm tough when it comes to stuff like this. Like, I'm tenacious. I wanna figure it out. Now that I've decided it's something that I wanna do, I gotta figure it out. So all that to say, Cassie has agreed to do another interview with me. I think we'll probably bring that to you in episode 3 of the podcast. So stay tuned for an interview with Cassie and hopefully other interviews. I'm really I really want this to be a part of the podcast. I've met so many amazing people from across the country through knitting, and they're people that I keep up with, and they're just everyday people. You know, Cassie's actually a really like wonderful, unique, talented person. She's a designer. She's a fabulous knitter. She's a wonderful human. But I guess what I'm saying is, I don't know that my podcast at the beginning will be like Knitterati, like all of the big names in knitting. I think it'll just be like normal people. And I actually really like that. And hopefully there'll be some opportunities for in-person. I'm looking over here like there'll be a person. There's nobody here. But maybe when I go live or I go to different events, I'll have opportunities to interview people one-on-one rather than through video. But still working on it. At work, things are going well. Trucking right along, you know. The Q2 and Q3 are really big for me at work. We have an annual opportunity to update our board of directors on the progress that our education program is making, and that's the program that I work with. And our team is really heavily involved in that. And so I've been kind of deep in preparing materials, preparing data, engaging with staff members on that. So that's been a big part of my work. It's been a really busy time. I've got a lot of travel coming up. I'm serving on a couple internal work groups, which is really fun. I'm working on one that's related to improving the operations systems at the foundation. I'm also working on one that's related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, which I'm really excited about, kind of bringing my perspective and views to that. So it's been really fun. Work's going great. What else can I update you on? I talked about my roses. They're blooming. We raise English roses, so we're very picky. So we raise David Austin English roses in particular, and so we have right now about 12 different varieties out on the patio. My most favorite one is Abraham Darby, and it's a rose that has this deep kind of cupped bloom, and it's got just a bazillion petals inside of it. And it has this wonderful, like, old rose, like, very traditional rose smell. And it's a beautiful, like, peachy pink color. And right now, as I'm looking at it, it has, like, approximately 20 blooms, just about to, like, just burst open. So I'm, like, waiting in anticipation. I go and check it, like, 5 times a day because I'm so excited about it. But anyway, it's a project that my partner Mike and I have been working on. This is now our 2nd year. Last year, we started with 2, and then we ended up with 4, and then we ended up with 8, and then 10, and now we have like 14. It's kind of crazy. We have like a little terrace outside, and so that's where the roses live, and it's a nice little sanctuary for us. So yeah, so the roses are going well. Knitting related thing that happened. So I asked people about what knitting needles I should be using, which ones I should try. I've always been a big Chaigu guy. I was actually an Addy guy for a while, and then I found out about Chaigus, and I really got into those, and I've been using those religiously for several years now. I tried signature needles again, and I was like, these are awful. Like, I don't know why I used them a long time ago, but then I tried them again just recently, and they're terrible. I hate them. I'm sure like lots of people like them, but they just weren't a good fit for me. So then I heard about die craft needles, which I talked about on the last podcast, and I got those in. They came midweek last week, and I liked them more than the signature needles, and I would give them probably like an 8 out of 10. But they're just too slippery for me. Like, I was actually finding that I was tensing up during knitting because the needles were so slick that I was afraid that my stitches were gonna fall off. And so I just decided that leave well enough alone. I'm gonna stick with the Chaigus. They have a wonderful sharp point on them, and they're just kind of like the needle for me. It also helps that they're really like affordable, and these die craft needles were really expensive. But what I will say, like on the plus side for the die crafts, they had a really nice finish. The join was fantastic, and the needle cable was really like wonderful and flexible and like everything you wanted it to be. So if you like a super slick needle, worth checking the Diacrafts out. If you want something that's like one click down from that in terms of slipperiness, if that's a word, Chai Goose. And I guess just leave well enough alone is a lesson from that one. Some other things that I wanted to update you on just in life. One of the things I said I would talk about on the podcast was like reality TV. And so 2 things to talk about. First is Dancing with the Stars. So I'm like a fair weather Dancing with the Stars fan. I don't watch it every season. If there's somebody who I'm really interested in, I'll watch it. This season they're doing something where they're, it's the Olympic athletes. So it's like Olympic athlete edition. And included on the Dancing with the Stars roster are 2 important people in my world. 1, Adam Rippon. 2, Tonya Harding. Tonya Harding. I know that like the Tonya Harding issue is something that divides the nation. It's very controversial. I mean, not really. Like there are like really like important issues for us to be thinking about as a society, and Tonya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan is like low on the list. But I love Tonya Harding. I am like here for the Tonya Harding comeback story. I was watching the ABC interview this winter where she like kind of made an admission that she like knew something at the end of the interview, and everybody was like, what? Like 20 years later, like why is she saying this? And they like interviewed Connie Chung, and they had like, I mean, it was just great. And they had like they had the best friend, like the gay guy and his like gay girl, like his like girl best friend, and they like had like the Nancy and Tonya like museum in rural Minnesota. Fabulous. But anyway, I'm here for the Tonya like comeback story, and her performances have been like so good, and she's just like, you know, she's having a redemption moment. Like she's showing the world that she's like still an athlete, that she could be graceful. You know, she's just, I don't know. I don't know why I'm obsessed with her, but I am. I think part of it is like one of my earliest memories is my great-grandmother lived in Detroit. I'm from Metro Detroit, and she lived in Detroit, and she was like one of my my favorites. She passed away in 2001. She lived to be like 92 or something, and she owned this like big, beautiful home in Detroit. And she had lived there, I think, since like the 40s or 50s, and this home had been in her family for a long time, and it was such a beautiful home. But anyways, one of my earliest memories of her was when I was a little boy. It was 1992, so I must have been like maybe 8 or 9 years old. I think I was 8 years old. And the Olympics were going on. Was it 92 or 94? I can't remember. Lillehammer, whenever Lillehammer was happening, I think 92. I stayed with my grandma for a week, and it was when it was like winter break, and I had a week off from school, and I went to go stay with my great-grandma, and we watched the figure skating events. Sidebar, I've liked figure skating since I was like 4 years old. So again, like if there were ever like telltale signs that I was like a huge gay guy, love of figure skating from age 8 could be, you know, one of the signs that I was gay. But anyway, I remember watching like Tonya and Nancy and like knowing about the controversy even at being 8 years old, and I think part of it was that Nancy Kerrigan got attacked in Detroit. She actually got attacked at Joe Louis Arena, which is the arena in Metro Detroit where they play hockey, and where they had one of the skating events where she got clubbed. But anyway, Tonya Harding. So I'm stoked for her comeback. Adam Rippon. So I have a love-hate relationship with Adam Rippon, and here's why. On one hand, I'm like so pleased that there's somebody who is gay and fabulous and like 100% himself, getting attention, you know, in sports in particular. That's really, you know, I think has been a barrier. And it's a huge deal, you know? It's a huge deal to have somebody who's out and visible. That said, I feel like he's a little over the top, like a lot over the top and a lot self-absorbed from what I see. And not to judge, like, you do you, be who you want to be. But it's a little much for me, the quiet, shy guy, to like take his energy sometimes. That said, his dances on Dancing with the Stars have been spectacular. First of all, his first dance was to Sissy That Walk, which is a song by RuPaul. So if you know me, you know that I was like totally into that. And then his second dance was the Quick Step, which is a super hard dance. And he just did like an amazing, amazing job. So anyway, Dancing with the Stars, you should check it out. Even if you're not a fan, this season's a really good one because the dancers are athletes, so they're bringing like Olympic quality athleticism to Dancing with the Stars. And you've got your Tonya Harding like comeback story if you're into that, which I totally am. So that's one thing related to TV, reality TV. The second thing is The Voice. So I'm trying to get into American Idol. I can't do it. I'm not liking it. I don't like Lionel Richie. I really don't like Katy Perry. She's just too sugary. I'm not into it. I can't with American Idol. Maybe one day, but not now. The Voice though. I'm totally into The Voice. I love that show. I heard Kyla Jade, so she's on Blake's team, sing this song that I had not heard of before, which is called This Is Me. It's one of the songs from the movie The Greatest Showman. I should also acknowledge that I'm very out of the loop. Out of all the things that I'm out of the loop on, movies, I'm like the worst. Like people are like, have you ever seen Titanic? I'm like, what? What is that about? You know? I mean, I've actually seen Titanic, but I'm just not, I like quicker hit stuff. I like TV, so I watch more TV and I don't go to the movies often. But anyway, Kyla Jade, she's this just wonderful soul singer. I mean, her voice is amazing. I love soul. I love R&B and blues and soul, and so I think that's why I'm drawn to her. I also love ballads and anthems. And she sang the song "This Is Me." It like brings tears to my eyes when I hear the song. It's like a song of I'm bruised and I'm broken, but like I'm not gonna let them break me down, kind of thing. When people say bad things about me, I'm just gonna like send in the flood and wash it away. I'm getting all the lyrics wrong, but you should listen to it. This Is Me from The Greatest Showman. And the person who sings it is Keala Settle. And if you go on YouTube, it's like a great waste of like, not waste, but like a great way to spend like 30 to 45 minutes. There's several versions of her performing this song, and she's just remarkable, like remarkable. So I'm obsessed with the song. And I shared on Facebook last week that I get obsessed with like particular songs. So, and when this happens, I like tell everybody about it, which I'm doing now to you all out there in YouTube land. But then I play it like 1,000 times. Like I just like listen to it on repeat over and over and over again, like some lunatic. But it's so good. It's one of those songs that I know I'm gonna like for a really long time. It's gonna stand the test of time with me. So anyway, check it out. A couple of other life updates. I'm still trying to figure out like what the right balance of like sharing personal stuff is on this podcast and like keeping it like really light and fun and airy and just very, light. I think I'll land in the middle. I like to keep it real though, so I just want to share that this time of year is a hard time of year for me. I had a really hard day on Thursday. I don't know why. I think I was at like a low point. One of the things that I struggle with personally is self-confidence. And I'm a very sensitive guy by nature. I think it's actually like one of my greatest strengths, but it's also a weakness at times. And so one of the things I'm always having to do in my life is I'm having to take a breath, build myself back up. You know, I take criticism really harshly. I've like made amazing strides, I think, in my life and like getting better at taking criticism. But I still have those moments, like all of you probably, where I get criticism and it just like crushes me. And Thursday I kind of had a perfect storm because I had a little bit of that going on, and my mom's birthday was yesterday, Friday, May 11th, and my mom passed. She passed about almost 10 years ago. It'll be 10 years ago in December, of alcoholism. And it you know, it was a really hard thing for many years up until she passed, because if you've dealt with alcoholism in your life, or if you are an alcoholic yourself, it's a hard thing, you know. And she never got help. She, you know, it was one of those things where we watched her slip away. Like you have to, everybody deals with it in a particular way. It really has some challenging family dynamics wrapped up in it. And so it was, you know, self-confidence stuff, and my mom's birthday, she would have been 56 on Friday, and then Mother's Day is Sunday. So it's just like, you know, this time of year where you can just feel kind of a little blah. I reached out on Facebook, and I just was, you know, I actually don't, I try not to do like too much like woe is me stuff on Facebook, though I am a big believer in asking for help. So like, I'm not too proud to actually like put my emotions out there and just say like, hey, I'm having a low moment and I could really like use some encouragement. And I asked for a little bit of that on Thursday. Maybe like, I think that's maybe the third time I've ever done that in my life. And everybody was so supportive and nice, so I really appreciate it. If you were somebody who reached out, I really appreciate it. It really means a lot to me. People said really nice things and reminded me of times that I had helped them, and it kind of built me back up. And I'm a big believer in that. Like, we've got to do that for one another. You know, and when you think about stuff like work, or you think about stuff like knitting, or you think about stuff like relationships, I think like one of my big lessons that I've learned in life is, and I'm not that old, I'm not like, you know, 80 years old trying to like pass down wisdom from this long life, but you have to be good to one another. You know, you have to take an opportunity to tell somebody, you know, what you think of them. Tell them that you value their friendship. Tell them that you love them. Tell them that you appreciate, you know, the role that they play in your life, whether they're a family member or a friend, a colleague. And we don't do that enough, you know? So we ought to do that. And it feels indulgent, you know? It feels like, oh, we're spending all this time talking about our feelings or talking about how great we are. It's like, but at the end of the day, that's what matters. Like, and really, like, that's what matters. Like, even at work, you know, I think about this a lot at work because I do have like a lot of technical knowledge at work. But one of the things I think that like I want people to take away from me at work, and then also in my personal life, is I want them to know that I'm here for them. I want them to have a memory of interacting with me that feels positive, like I cared about them as a person, and that I supported them, I listened to them, that I really felt like their opinion mattered. So yeah, anyway, more than you wanted to know, sad moment, sorry, just being real, keeping it real about what's going on. So anyway, I've kind of like moved through that, felt those emotions. Now I'm like recording the podcast. I'm having a great day. I had a really good day on Friday. It was like night and day, Thursday and Friday. Thursday was like dark, terrible, and then Friday was like fun, sunshine, great day at work, like, you know, everything was great. So other stuff that's going on. So a couple of other things. One is last week was Teacher Appreciation Week. I'm sure you all saw social media. I'm a teacher by training. I'm a person who works in education policy. I'm so appreciative of teachers. I think that teachers really set the course of my life in a positive direction. I think I mentioned that during the last podcast, and maybe I'll share that in a fuller story. I'll probably give like an alert, like this is going to be a serious podcast, but with like heavy material. But I just, in my mind, I remember my third grade teacher, Kristen Ryan, who I'm actually friends with on Facebook, and still follow her and chat with her every now and again. And there were teachers that I had, like fabulous teachers throughout my whole life, but there were these key people. Like if I think about my journey, there were key people along the way, and Kristen Ryan was one of them. I remember being in third grade, and I remember Kristen, Mrs. Ryan, actually, I should call her Mrs. Ryan. Isn't it weird, like when you grow up and you see your teachers, you're like, do I call her Mrs. Ryan? Do I call her Kristen? Probably Mrs. Ryan is more appropriate. But she was the first person who made me feel smart. And it was the first time in school where I feel like I really excelled. And that's kind of amazing, right? Like, I think, and I know that she spent time with me, you know, and whether she knew or didn't know what I was experiencing at home, which was a turbulent life that would get progressively more turbulent from third grade on top, you know, throughout high school. It would just get kind of worse and worse. My home situation deteriorated greatly from third grade onward. But I don't know if she knew, but it's one of these things that I think about when I think about teaching. It's like teachers have this amazing capacity to either make or break the lives of students. Obviously, they're not the whole picture, and there are societal factors that influence the lives of students, but I feel deeply that teachers are at the core of what can really be a catalyst for somebody to really find worth. Kristen made me feel like I could be good at school. You know, she told me I was smart. She told me I needed to try a talented and gifted program. She, you know, gave me challenging materials. She helped develop me as like a leader. She helped develop my social skills. And who knows, like, what would have happened if she would have just kind of like pushed me to the side. So anyway, Teacher Appreciation Week. So Kristen Ryan, she was really an important person in my life. I don't know if she knows that, but she was. And in high school, I had a government teacher, Jennifer Vick, who I remember it very clearly. So at our school, we had to take 10th grade. 10th grade, we took government, and then in 11th and 12th grade, you could take advanced placement courses. And I remember Jennifer Vick was always like really cool. She was super smart. She had like a really quick, like kind of sarcastic wit about her. She wore these really fabulous neck scarves. I don't know if she still does that, but I always like, I was in the closet then, but as like a closeted gay boy, I was like, I love your scarves. I wish I could tell her that. I'm telling her that now. Jennifer, I love your scarves. Keep wearing them. But she wrote me, I was in her government class, and she wrote me a note on school stationery. I probably still have it somewhere because I'm weird like that and I keep mementos. But it said something like, Drew, I think you're really smart. I really think that you ought to do advanced placement courses next year. And I was like, yeah, I should try doing that. And then I did, and she was my teacher for that course, and it was in her class that I learned how to write. And it's so funny because I did learn how to write in language arts and English, and I was in honors, and I had advanced placement, literature and all this stuff. But in her class, she was like pedal to the metal. Like, we had like this insane history book that was like 4,000 pages. I mean, it was just like a tome. And we had hundreds of pages to read every week. I just always remember like spending hours and hours and hours and hours reading. And then we had this other book that we used where it was like articles, like historical analysis, and it was like, I don't know what the word for it is. They were like more like journal article kind of pieces. They were definitely at a collegiate level. And we had to basically like read the article and then write a very short analytical paper. And boy, like she would just tear those papers apart. Like I would write, what I thought was really great, very good arguments, very like grounded in the material and well-resourced and all of this stuff. And she would just like bleed all over those papers. And she would never give you'd never get like, they were out of, I think, 15 points, and you'd never get 15. I think one time I got like a 14, and I was just like, yes. But anyway, I'm sharing these stories. This is becoming a long segment, so I'll stop here. I could go on, and maybe I'll share some more of my favorite teachers down the line, but two things I just want to say. One, I just want to call those people out by name because they're everyday people like you and I who are like busting their ass for no money, not to get political, but like for no money. And they're like working miracles in the lives of kids in a lot of cases, and they deserve they deserve appreciation every day, not just like a week. So if you're a teacher out there, or you've ever taught, or you love a teacher, or you know a teacher, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so, okay, so the next thing I'll talk about, I have like a little cheat sheet right here. I'm like looking down, you guys are like, why are you looking over there? I have a little cheat sheet right here. So one of the things that, so I asked in one of my recordings to give me suggestions about things that you might want to have me cover on a podcast. And one of the things that people asked for was something about cookies, like eating a cookie. Those of you who don't know me, well, I'm a cookie baker. I love baking cookies. I'm not professional. I don't claim to be an expert. I think that, sorry, I have allergies. It's like a thing right now. My eyes are red and I'm like coughing and trying to not sneeze. Anyway, so I'm somewhat of an amateur cookie baker. The reality is I like the precision of baking. I'm not, those of you who know me, I'm not like great on being spontaneous. I don't like flexibility. Well, I do like flexibility. But I like the very exact nature of baking. And I like the idea that I can write everything down, which I do. Every time I bake, I write it down. And I can basically replicate results over and over and over again. So I can get a consistent result. I started baking in earnest, when I think my first job when I was at Trust Midwest in Michigan, I started baking and bringing cakes and cookies for coworkers. And then it just became a thing. And so then I did it at SCORE, State Collaborative on Reforming Education in Tennessee, where I worked. And then now I'm at the Walton Family Foundation, and I have now become the cookie guy. And I will gladly wear that hat because I love cookies. I think they're amazing. My partner calls me the Cookie Monster because I love eating them. So I thought I would do a segment, and I don't know exactly like what this will evolve into. I think at some point maybe I'll do like a demo, and I'll bring this podcast downstairs into the kitchen so you guys can see like me making some things live. But for today, what I wanted to do is I wanted to share some of my favorite cookie resources and cookie books and recipes with you guys. I'm also like not one of these people, like I'm not gonna be stingy. Like, let me share the recipe with you, let me share the resource with you, and like go make magic. Like go do your thing. So I've got a couple resources, 3 in particular, that I love. So the first is this book. It's called Dory's Cookies. It's by Dory Greenspan. Dory Greenspan used to run a cookie, I guess you'd call it like a cookie boutique in New York City, because in New York City they have things like that. It was called Bird and Sell, and it went on. I think it didn't go out of business. Dory Greenspan just decided to stop doing it. But she's known as the Cookie Savant. Amazing title. I wish I could be the Cookie Savant, maybe one day, of our generation. And this book it's big. So look, I mean, it's like a lot of recipes. This is all cookies. It's a great book for a couple reasons. One, it has really fabulous illustrations, and it's just like a good read. So it's got like great photography and pictures. And so if you're just somebody like me and you like to collect cookbooks that are beautiful, this is a really good one to own for that reason. Second, the recipes are really great. So there are 2 in particular that I love. One is on page 125 of this book. I think you can also Google this recipe. It's called My Newest, like my newest, chocolate chip cookie. And Dory has lots of different chocolate chip cookie recipes in this book. This one is controversial. So I made this one for a work event. It contains some things that make it controversial. It contains whole wheat flour. I need to take a drink real quick. Sorry about that. It contains whole wheat flour, which gives the cookie some chewiness. It also gives it some additional flavor. It flavors the cake in a way that you're not going to taste like strong wheat flavor, but you're going to taste it a little bit. It also contains, I think, nutmeg and cardamom. And it divided our office. So personally, it's my favorite. If I get to pick what cookie I want for me, it's the cookie that I'm gonna pick because I like the chewiness of it. I love spice, and so spice in a chocolate chip cookie, people are kind of like, ooh, I don't know about that. It's really good. And you don't have to use cardamom and nutmeg. You can use allspice, or you could use cinnamon. It's really up to you. So you can use whichever ones you like. So that's my newest chocolate chip cookie. And then the other one that she has in here that I like is called Crasho Cookies, and it's on page 365. It's a like oatmeal chocolate raisin cookie. Again, some people hate oatmeal raisin cookies. I love them. They're like one of my favorites. One tip she tells you in here, which I had never heard of before, is she recommends putting the raisins in warm water and soaking them for like an hour before you put them in the recipe. I thought that was really interesting. She said that it helps like make them more flavorful in the cookie, and it's true. So that's like a cool little tip. So if you make an oatmeal raisin cookie, or really anything with dried fruit, if you put the dried fruit in some warm water, it kind of allows the fruit to open and expand, and then you kind of shake it out like in a colander and get it relatively dry again, and then you can include it in your cookie recipe, and it will make the fruit pop a little bit more. So anyway, Dory's Cookies, that's number 1. Number 2, The Perfect Cookie. Now, I'm always skeptical of books like this where they're like, the perfect soup, the most amazing, 100 most amazing soup recipes, like, because they're usually bad, and they're usually like in the bargain bin, like, not really, really good. This one actually comes from America's Test Kitchen. They are very reputable. They have other cookbook series, like for slow cookers and for the Instapot and just like regular recipes. And I find that theirs are really good. Again, it's a chocolate chip cookie recipe in here. It's called Perfect Chocolate Chip Cookies. This has you brown the butter. I think that that's really what makes this one pop. These turned out really good. They were really, really good. And then there's an oatmeal, a classic chewy oatmeal cookie in here. Again, I think that these were really spectacular cookies, and they were nice and big and chewy. So another really good resource. I haven't really made my way through this one that much, so I'll keep you posted on that one. And then finally, the last one, I'm just going to show you one of her cookbooks, but The Smitten Kitchen. Amazing. I'm like, I have no words because it's amazing. So there are two food blogs that I follow religiously, Smitten Kitchen and The Pioneer Woman. Smitten Kitchen is written by Deb Perlman. She has some cookbooks. So this is her first cookbook. It's the Smitten Kitchen cookbook by Deb Perlman. The recipe that I like is actually not in this book. It's on her blog, and her blog is very generous. She has a great way of writing too, so it's just an enjoyable blog to read. So two recipes from her that you must try. The first one is called Crispy Chewy Chocolate Chip Cookies. So if you put that in Google, if you put Crispy Chewy Chocolate Chip Cookies, Smitten Kitchen, it will come up. I think it was like 2009 when she wrote that recipe. And these are the cookies that everybody asks for. Like, everybody. Like, at the office, they're like, we want those cookies. And in fact, I have two coworkers in particular who shall remain nameless, Mark and Shani, who only want those cookies. Like, they do not want me to try any of these additional recipes. They do not want me to like try a snickerdoodle. They do not want a brownie. They want this cookie only. And like, not to toot my own horn, but if I put those in the break room, I put like 40 cookies in the break room at 8 a.m. They are gone by 9:30. Like, I mean, you have to like act fast to get them. So Crispy Chewy Chocolate Chip Cookie. The key to that cookie is 1, not to over bake it. 2, to use a cookie scoop so you get even portioning. I actually do that in all of my cookie recipes. I always use a scoop to make sure that they're even, they bake evenly. And 3, it's the amount of vanilla in that cookie. That cookie has a tablespoon of vanilla in the dough, and that's a lot. Usually recipes will call for like a teaspoon or half a teaspoon of vanilla. That's what really makes those cookies sing, though, is having that like really great chocolate chip cookie cake. And then another one of hers, so that was the first one. The second one is called Salted Chocolate Chunk Cookie, I think. Salted Chocolate Chunk. I just made this from her, and it was amazing. It turned out really cool. It has you use this like flaky sea salt as a topping, so it's a cookie that's got that salty sweet thing going on. It's got an awful lot of salt in it. I mean, not a ton, but more. You can taste it. You can taste the salt interacting with the chocolate. Again, you know, that's kind of like the oatmeal cookie thing. Like, some people like that and some people don't like that. I really like it. I use this special salt called Malden salt. You can find it at Whole Foods. You can also find it online. It's literally like, it almost looks like shavings or like snowflakes. Like, it's like, I mean, very chunky salt. Not chunky like sharp, but it's like flaky, flaky salt. So that's my cookie segment. And I'll continue to share as I bake. You know, there's lots of other things that I like to make. I like to make coffee cakes and little loaves. So maybe I'll share about those next time. And you know, this cookie segment came as a response to me asking people for things they want to see on the podcast. So if there are other things that you want me to talk about, questions, so if you want to like email me a question or message me and send me a question, I'm happy to oblige, happy to share about that on the podcast. I'm trying to think of what else I have to share with you guys today. So I talked a little bit about the learning curve with podcast. I talked a little bit about Cassie's interview, which will be coming next episode. So I guess 2 things in closing, or maybe 3. I always do that. Do you guys notice? I'm like 2, but maybe 3, but maybe 4. So 2 things, but maybe 4 things. 1, Stephen West. So Stephen West has a sale on his patterns right now. If you haven't found that out, it's going on till May 14th, so you have like 2 days. If you put in the coupon code WestKnits on Ravelry, you can get 25% off all of his patterns. I bought Vertices Unite, which is this cool geometric shawl that you're kind of making in shapes. It's hard to explain. I should have prepared more, but I didn't prepare more. But that's the one I got. But he has a bunch of amazing patterns, so great opportunity to save a little bit of money and also support Steven. Number 2 is I just wanted to share a little bit about some of my upcoming podcasts, or my plans. So number 1, frickin' figure out how to do the interview and not screw it all up and not waste Cassie's time. So that's priority number 1. But I'm gonna figure that out, because I want to be able to interview people. There's gonna be this podcast, which was like a little bit knitting light. So apologies for knitters out there who are like, where's the knitting content? Why was this all about like Drew's sob story and teachers and cookies? I'm unexpected. You never know what you're gonna get with me. So, but yes, so episode 3 is gonna come right around my birthday. So my birthday is on May 25th. Can't believe it. I'm gonna be 35, which I say that out loud and I'm like, ugh, 35. I know I'm not that old, and people in their 40s and 50s are like, shut up. But gosh, like 35, I don't, that's almost to 40, and that feels like that's happening too fast. But my birthday's on the 25th. I think I'll probably record on the 26th, which is a Saturday. And so as a part of that podcast, I'm going to introduce some additional knitting segments that I'm thinking about and working on. I'm going to try to get the interview stuff down, so hopefully I'll have an interview with Cassie that I can share with you guys then. If not, at least I'll have some sort of update. So that's coming. And then I have a 4th episode that's in the works, and it will be my first kind of maybe live. I haven't decided if I'm going to do live or if I'm just going to record it from the event, but I'm going to the Plucky Knitters pop-up shop. So the Plucky Knitter is like one of my favorite dyers, and she just recently acquired a storefront in Hastings, Michigan, which is just outside of Grand Rapids. And at the end of May, early June, so I think it's like May 31st to June 3rd, she's having a pop-up event. And so I'm going to that. I plan on doing some sort of podcast, something there. It might just be sitting and knitting with a couple of my friends, while I ask them questions and we kind of engage and talk about the event. It might be a couple live segments from the market. It might be an interview or 2. I don't know. We'll just have to see. But I'm gonna do something around the Plucky Knitter event. Last thing. So, I wanted to share a little bit of progress on my Stevie, which I'm actually like mid-row. This is horrible. I'm a horrible host because I'm not prepared. But here it is. It's hard to see it. Hopefully you can see it. It's growing. It's at that part, so you can kind of see that it's like folded over. It's starting to get really big, which for you non-knitters means like the rows are getting really long. Like this is a triangle, so you knit it from the top and then it gets really big. And so as you continue through the pattern, the actual, the number of stitches that you have on your needle increases every single row or every other row. And so it's growing. I'm really liking it a lot. Like, I'm just very pleased with how it's turning out. I'm really excited because you can't really see the green and blue up here because they started the pattern out, and I did that intentionally, so I'm going like blue to, like doing the rainbow blue to red, and then it'll go red back to blue. So like those two colors that were kind of small on top are going to be huge sections of the bottom part of the piece, and so therefore they'll be pretty prominent. So yeah, working on Stevie. I haven't had a ton of time to knit lately, so I'm kind of a slacker. I don't really have a lot of other things to share with you, but I just had an idea. So one thing that I'm gonna do on every podcast, and I forgot until just now, is I'm gonna go over here. So this is where like the naughty projects live, things that are unfinished, some that have been unfinished for years. So I'm just gonna show them off. I'm gonna show them to you. Maybe I'm gonna become re-inspired by them. So let me go grab one. Okay. So yeah, I have like several carts over here, but let me grab this one. Okay. So this is a Bink waffle bag. What's in this Bink waffle bag? Probably something from like 1865. But let's see what's actually in here. Oh yeah, look, okay. It's a sock. I don't know when I started this. It has a long tail. The yarn is really nice though. I think that this yarn is Turtle Pearls yarn, which is really beautiful. And in fact, I know that it is. And this is the Polywana Cracker colorway. Isn't that a cute name, Polywana Cracker? Because it kind of looks like it's got like parrot colors. This is a self-striping yarn, so it's like it looks very complicated, but actually the yarn is doing all the work for me. And I've even turned the heel. Like, look, I've turned the heel. So all I literally have to do is knit the foot, and I would be done with these bad boys. So maybe I will get working on these guys. But yeah, this is the Naughty Whip. So naughty, not finished. I'm guessing this was probably more like 2013. So that makes it like 5 years old, which is terrible. It's one of many poor, unfortunate projects that have been like tossed to the wayside as I work on other more exciting things. Anyway, thank you all so much for joining me today. Appreciate all of your support. Please tune in. Please share if you want with your friends and other people who might be interested in the podcast. More to come. Episode 3 coming in maybe like a week and a half, 2 weeks. Be safe out there. Be good to one another, and we'll talk soon. Take care.